In today's show, I'm going to Detroit to speak with Khahil of Locked On Pistons about just what's going on in Detroit. Let's get started.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, guys, we're back. Another episode of Locked On NBA. We're going to talk about Detroit, who made another move that seems to facilitate other squads in doing what they need to do. And we're going to talk with Khahil of Locked On Pistons about what all that means. But I got to tell you about StatHero, because did you know that 85% of people who play daily fantasy sports lose? Is it that surprising? The game is rigged against you. You're going up against experts who have got more resources and more time and more tools that you just don't stand a chance. That's why I'm introducing StatHero. It's the first ever daily fantasy sports book that puts the player in control and winning within reach. Here's how it works. StatHero shows you the lineups ahead of time, so you know what you're going up against, and then you submit your lineup to beat what they put out there. You name your stakes. Winner takes all. You have the advantage. StatHero is showing you their lineups ahead of time. No one else does that. You're in total control. StatHero is DFS the way it was meant to be. One-on-one. Play StatHero now and change the odds. Go to stathero.com/lockedon and sign up free. And right now, they will match you 3 times back on your first play. That is right, a 300% match. That is absolutely unheard of. So go to stathero.com/lockedon, stathero.com/lockedon. All right, so let's now bring in the host of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Khahil is here with me. Khu, welcome back to Locked On NBA. Detroit once again are active in trades, in moves, and across the last couple of days, they have. I know this was a bit of a meme last offseason, but they have acquired another center and bought him out, as they did with Dwayne Dedmon, and then one of the centers they signed last season, Jahlil Okafor, goes back in the deal, and they've traded away Mason Plumlee, who they brought in. So, I guess outside of what it appears from the outside looking in Detroit, where Troy Weaver is just, I want to get rid of every player that was brought in before I got here. And I also just want to have no real concern about having dead cap space. Like, what is the purpose of these sort of deals? Is it just that acquiring of the 4 second-round picks? Is it just creating good relationships across the league? What is the direction of what Weaver is trying to do with these sort of deals?
Well, something with Troy Weaver that he made sure to tell everybody when he first signed with the Pistons. I believe something he said, I can't remember the quote exactly, but he said, "My chamber is always empty," or something. I'm always, basically he'll never stop being aggressive. And I think this shows that, he's always going to keep options open for him to be aggressive. Like you said, Sekou was the last player who was also traded in the deal. Sekou was the last player from the previous regime on the roster, and he has traded him. So they never really, you got the sense from watching this past season, and basically from quotes from him and Dwayne Casey, that they never really believers in Sekou. So definitely they wanted to move on from that and wanted to move on from the past regime. And now we have everyone, or the Pistons have everyone that's Weaver's guy. The longest active Piston right now is Killian Hayes, who played 26 games last year. That's crazy to think about. But yeah, I think it really was just about, they were over the roster spots. They were at 16. They needed to cut down one. Instead of just releasing Jahlil Okafor, they traded 2 people with him, and Sekou got 4 second-round picks back, and one of them is Detroit's own second-round pick they got back. So they brought back some more second-round picks where they had the cupboard was bare a little bit. So they got some second-round picks in return. Also created an open roster spot in case they want to give Luka Garza maybe a full roster spot, or maybe Jamaro Pickett, who showed out for them in the summer league, and it's been said that they really are enamored with him. So basically, they created an open roster spot, got rid of that issue, and they also got 4 second-round picks for a guy they didn't really believe in, didn't want to pick up his option for next year, or had to pay him the $5.5 million option, I believe it was. And also Jahlil Okafor, who really just didn't have any purpose on this team at all.
Yeah, look, there was no reason for Okafor to be there, but that was someone that Weaver remarkably signed for 2 years last offseason. So I guess, yeah, you can criticize him making errors in signing guys like Okafor and Plumlee, but also you can praise him for realizing the error of his ways and getting out of those deals as soon as possible, rather than just hanging around and leaving those guys on the roster. In terms of the actual deal was getting Jordan, it was getting 4 second-round picks. They got almost $6 million in cash, and of course now they have waived DeAndre Jordan. They now have over $40 million of dead money on the cap this season. No one is expecting the Pistons to be competing for a title or a high seed or a playoff spot this season, so the cap space is not necessarily something that's super valuable. But it can. We saw this last offseason where Weaver went out and splashed all this cash around because he wanted to be competitive in getting Plumlee and getting Okafor and getting Jeremy Grant and making all these moves, and then having that lack of flexibility to take dumped contracts on with so much dead cap space is a little bit confusing in terms of the direction of where Troy is headed based on how aggressive he was in trying to get free agents in and make those moves last offseason, where that sort of has been eliminated now.
Well, I think the thing with Troy Weaver is definitely he's doing things that isn't normal and things that you see normal GMs do. That doesn't mean that he's wrong. I think a lot of us in Detroit, especially last offseason when we first did his moves, it didn't make much sense. And he got really ridiculed throughout most of the offseason because a lot of people were criticizing him. However, after a year of seeing his moves and seeing what his plan is, it makes sense to us. And I understand what he's trying to do here. This trade, I'm not a fan of getting rid of Sekou. I was a big Sekou guy. I'm not a fan of getting rid of a 20-year-old with a lot of potential to take on dead cap on its face. But they did move a guy who they didn't believe in for 4 second-round picks, basically. So, if you look, it is what it is. And then also with the dead cap, they're not really trying to win this year. The moves with Jeremy Grant, Mason Plumlee, and along with the moves, they're making right now, I don't know if it's necessarily to try to compete to win. More so it is to try to put a team around your young guys that has a good environment, a good place to try to develop, have good players around that, will help them develop and be in a good situation to where it benefits them the best way possible. I think that's the route he's taking. I think a lot of us in Detroit also have been talking about that 2023 year. That seems to be the circular date. If you look at the salary cap, the Pistons are going to have an absolute load of space, and a lot of the guys are still going to be on rookie scale contracts. So I think 2023 is where the Pistons are really zeroing in on, okay, this is where we plan on actually being something by then. But yeah, I think it's not a big deal with dead cap this year. Also because Troy Weaver said before the season, people laughed at him outside of Detroit, and really it's just true. He has the guys that he wants on the team right now. They're not trying to win, obviously, but he has the guys that he wants, the guys that he wants to develop, and the guys he wants to build the score around already on the team. So it's not that he's looking. I don't think he's going to be looking to trade many guys. I don't think he's going to be trying to do many moves now. He said before this offseason that he has the guys that he wants here, and people didn't believe him, and I think this offseason reaffirms that he meant that when he said that. So he brought back Hamidou Diallo, Frank Jackson, all these guys. Dead cap is there. It's not great to have, but he has the guys he wants, and he wants to develop these guys, and the dead cap isn't going to stop that from happening.
I guess something that we don't really ever see in the NBA, Koo, is there's a dead cap notation for a player who's actually still on the roster in Corey Joseph. So Corey Joseph's got dead cap money, and he's also still on the roster. That's not something you see all that often, but you're right. Troy Weaver is doing things that you don't normally see across the NBA. He's got his number 1 pick there, Cade Cunningham. He's got Jeremy Grant around him. He's got Killian Hayes. They'll probably get another high lottery pick this season. And he said, moving towards the future. It is unorthodox what they've been doing. It's really interesting to see how this all pans out. But, it is... It's like a self-fulfilling meme of Troy Weaver getting centers and Troy Weaver buying out guys and Troy Weaver using the stretch provision. And he just keeps doing it. And we don't know what's going to happen or if it's going to work in the future. But I do agree with you regarding that the Sekou one. Again, maybe he's not the guy he's definitely not the guy they picked. They might not have believed in him. But he's 20 years old. He's not like he's super old and he's got no future ahead of him, and they literally gave him no opportunities at all last season. So that was a little bit curious, but you got to have conviction, and I don't think you can do anything but praise Troy Weaver for having the conviction in his own thoughts, whether you agree or disagree with them or not. If he believes in something, he's going straight for it, and that is exactly what we've seen. It's going to be another interesting season in Detroit, Koo, to see how this all comes together and see the development of Killian and Cade and Jeremy and all these players together, Sadiq and Isaiah, all those guys together, and you'll have it covered for us all over on Locked On Pistons throughout the seasons. Thanks for jumping on Locked On NBA with me.
Absolutely.
And that does it for another episode of Locked On NBA. Don't forget, go and hit the thumbs up here on YouTube. Go hit the subscribe button. You'll never miss an episode. Leave your comments down below as well, guys. Thanks for joining in. I'll see you later. Bye.